Professor Papanikos, thank you for inviting me. Distinguished members of the audience, thank you for being with us today. We are going to have a conversation on Concordian economics, a conversation in three parts: the theory, the policy, and practice of Concordian economics. And then, of course, we're going to have some consideration of the broad implications on culture in general. If you click on my name, thanks to the internet, you will be surprised, as I was surprised one day, to discover almost much of my work output is there on one page. So eventually do that, please. So today, what we are concerned is a core change in economics, a core change from the basic foundational statement of mainstream economics, which is saving equals to investment, to the Concordian expression of complementarity or hoarding to investment. How did I pass from saving to hoarding? It's a very long conversation, which you'll find detailed in my fundamental book called The Economic Process. It's more than 100 pages, but it's very rigorous logic and mathematical thought. And basically what I did was something very, very simple, was to say, what is the meaning of saving? I later learned that saving today in mainstream economics means 100,000 things. Once you base your economics on that definition, the analysis ends into a black box. This is officially recognized. And out of the black box, the output is always a trend which is increasing, a trend which might be decreasing, no, a trend which is actually stable. Even our latest Nobel laureate, Esther Duflo, Professor Duflo, recognized that, and she admitted that, with her studies of poverty, especially in Africa, she could not decide whether all the expenses of foreign aid were helping Africa or damaging Africa, or just being indifferent. What is this? What is this? So eventually, if we go to hoarding and investment and see them that they are related in a relation of complementarity, we are going to look into that black box through the economic process, which happens there in between there. So there we are. The effects of hoarding are much clearer put in a Lorentz diagram, which is well known. The sum of the two is always 100. So if one increases, the other decreases. And the basic propositions of Concordian economics are not propositions, they're findings. That more hoarding, of course, less growth, because there is less investment, the less growth. More hoarding, this is tricky, more inflation. Why? Because to hoard, you have to spend things. You put money in circulation, but then there is fewer goods, therefore higher prices. More hoarding, more poverty. Of course, a quick note. Our local poet laureate, Vincent Ferrini, in 2002, reviewed this work, my book, The Economic Process, for the Gloucester Daily Times, and he discovered one thing which is really the core of Concordian economics. He said that Concordian economics has the answers to universal poverty, and I have to emphasize, poverty for whites or blacks or yellow, and so universal. Italian, English, American, Indian, South African, and so on. Universal poverty. And it was absolutely fantastic. He used a poetic expression and said, and the anxieties of the affluent, which is wonderful, And the anxieties of the affluent are taken care of, because we will see that Concordian economics does not look for a redistribution of wealth. Whatever the people have today, that's it. We are concerned about the future. So we do not need 1 cent from the affluent. Okay, so basically now, through the core of Concordian economics, which is this relational complementarity between hoarding and investment, what we are going to have is a series of mathematical models which reproduce Keynes. And basically, we are concerned with the production. Production of what? Production of consumer goods, capital goods, goods hoarded. But these goods are not just in the air. They are owned by someone immediately as they are produced. So we are concerned with the model of distribution of ownership of consumer goods, capital goods, goods hoarded. And then there is the issue of money. What is money? Oh, incredible. In modern economics, there is no definition of money. You know, what we have are the functions of money, but not a definition of money. And I will not get into that issue at all. But what I'm concerned is that if we want a model of consumption now in correspondence with the production and distribution of ownership, we have to concern and say that consumption means expenditure today. Expenditure of what? Expenditure of money. Whatever is money, whatever you. So you hoard some money and then you spend the rest of it. You spend it what? You spend on consumer goods, capital goods, and goods hoarded, but also you spend on some other financial assets of different nature, different risk, and so on and so forth. Basically, what we have are three fundamental propositions now. The third equation of each model, production, distribution, consumption, is in a relation of equivalence to each other. This is tricky and will be much more evident if we put it in a geometric format. Production is equivalent to distribution, equivalent to consumption. What does it mean? Basically, it means that this is the economic process. Even if you go and buy a chocolate bar, you go to the store. Production basically, you know, means a store. It's part of the production process. The store is part of the production process. So they give you the chocolate bar, and you give them money. So, you know, the production process can continue. In between, there is something that economists don't see, but it is there. It's the ownership that has been exchanged, the ownership of money, the ownership of the chocolate bar, the real wealth. And how do you have that? You have even a legal proof. The little bit of piece of paper, the slip of paper that says you have bought it and now you own it. That's the meaning of that slip of paper. If you don't have that, it's a bit dangerous. You know, you can even get to jail. So let's, this is one instant in time. Bang, this is what happens. And happens for the individual person or a family or a state or the many or governments or the world as a whole. And there is no distinction anymore between microeconomics and macroeconomics. But this is one instant in time. Bang. What happens over time? Over time, what we can do is to reduce the rectangle of production to a line. You know, topology is wonderful. You can do all sorts of tricks with topology. And so we reduce that one line, this one line. Then we reduce the three lines to 3 points. So 0, 0, 0. And now we look at the process, the economic process over time. If we look at over time, we know that the line of monetary wealth, which is consumption, tends to be faster, higher, stronger than the real wealth. Why? Because it's much easier to build an investment asset than to build a chair. You know? And the difference between the two lines gives us the bubble. So we can measure the bubble. And this is the national economy, not a bubble of one investment asset, even though you can apply that to one investment asset and so on. So then the line of distribution of ownership goes through the roof, which means that more and more wealth is accumulated among the few fewer people, which means what? That the consumer doesn't have the money now to give back to production. Therefore, the system collapses. The mathematics of it are very interesting. And basically, we can have the rate of growth of production, rate of growth of distribution, the rate of growth of consumption over time. And basically, all three of them are a function of each other. Basically, what is happening in economics, we happen to have three spheres rotating within each other. And this is only if the equivalence relations are constant and validated and respected. If not, what we're going to have are rhomboids, are ugly constructions instead of three spheres ordering into each other. More detailed analysis of the economic process as a whole, we can put more stuff in our analysis, like the rate of interest, the marginal efficiency of capital, which is something that has been completely misunderstood, misapplied in mainstream economics, and this fantastic chapter to be talked about. So all these things, we put them together in what? In an organization of the flow of funds, flows of values. What we have generally is a monetary authority, which gives the money. Then we have natural resources, which put together do what? They create consumer goods, capital goods, and goods to be hoarded, plus lots of money. Now, consumer goods and capital goods get out of the economic system, but the capital goods remain in the system. So they create next and next and next and next. If we put the two faces of this diagram together, we are going to have a very interesting image that physicists and theorists of chaos theory and so are well familiar with, and they call it the strange attractor. I hope that eventually, once we have the numbers, we are going to have a verification of this hypothesis that I'm putting forward. So basically here ends the theory of Concordian economics. Let's pass to the policy. The policy is economic justice, people. Economic justice. You know, Giambattista Vico talked about justice as being the sixth sense. You know, so strong. Everyone has it. Everyone has it. Everyone knows if there is economic justice or not. And you are very familiar with the two planks, distributive justice and commutative justice, because Aristotle talked about them. Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas accepted them. The doctors of Salamanca did fantastic work on them. But then came John Locke, and he said, forget about economic justice. What we are concerned is with the justice of property rights. To which, you know, Karl Marx, a few years back, further down the line, said, justice of property rights? Oh, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you the story of injustice of property rights. So basically now, as I said, we're going to have the completion of the theory of economic justice is by adding participative justice, because participative justice links all forms of justice in an equivalence relation and explains it to everyone. Now, neither Aristotle nor Thomas Aquinas, even Thomas Aquinas, could talk about participative justice because they had to give what? Right to participate in the economic process to whom? To everyone. There were slaves there. They tolerated slavery. They couldn't do it. Jefferson faced the same problem. He had to erase the word property from the Declaration of Independence, and he sent us to the la la land of pursuit of happiness. Be happy, people. For now on, I'll give you happiness. In Concordian economics, the theory and policy are an automatic relation, because there is a one-to-one relationship between production and participative justice. It's automatic. Distribution, distributive justice, consumption, commutative justice. Commutative means the exchange of wealth, and the two have to be in an equivalence relation in order to be just. If they are not in equivalence, they are not just. I'm sorry, but that's the story of equivalence, you know. In Concordian economics, we don't leave the theory of even the theory of economics or the theory of policy up in the air, but we make it very concrete through what? Through the application. Application through economic rights and responsibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 4 factors of production today, not 3. You know, capital has to be split into financial capital and physical capital. People, there are, you know, stocks and bonds, equipment, shovels, etc., etc., etc. So we have to have a right of access to land and natural resources, a right of access to national credit, right of access to the fruits of one's labor. You know, if I work and then someone steals my work, what have I done? You know, and that's what happens. But those are a longer story that you have to. We can reserve a discussion to other moments, and then we have to enjoy the fruits of our wealth. Now, in the economy of today, what we have, it's not a respect to the property of everyone, no matter what Locke talks about. What we have is a Pac-Man approach of industrial development. One corporation buys up another one. There are ways of controlling that, but again, there can be more detailed discussions, which don't have the time right now. This is now gives us, you know, Concordian economics with a theory of economic justice and the economic rights and responsibilities. Gives us a completely different view of society. Society is not composed of individuals, as Locke was basically telling us, or property rights, as Locke was telling us. Neither was the opposite that Marx talked about. You know, collectivism. The reality is that these two are two abstractions. The individual doesn't exist. You know, if you have a father or mother, you are not an individual. You're a member of a small family, member of society. And the word that I discovered, I coined 60 years ago, is somism. I don't really like the word, but it is, you know, if you find a better word, please come and say it. And basically, somism says the reality is men and women into the social context. And what is that? That's Aristotle, the social man. No. Then, from the study of society with the study of political science, today we are locked into 2 ideologies, both false, both deleterious to human beings, incredibly bad, both of them, one worse than the other, of course, but both horrible, capitalism and socialism or communism. And I'm suggesting that thanks to Concordian economics, we can have Concordianism, which basically means the exercise of our natural rights to land the natural resources, to national credit, because we create the national credit, you know, and so on and so forth. If we put 1, 0, and infinity in our geometric format, we get a very interesting relationship in mathematics. But forget about mathematics for a while. By the way, I published a paper in mathematics and also in physics. But let's look at that from a point of view of philosophy. 1, of course, is all Western philosophy. Then what? 0 is Eastern philosophy. the two of them really should meet in infinity, because one is in infinity, zero is in infinity once you put them in a relational relationship. And so we have the definition of relationalism. That's what happened to me a few months ago. Among the most beguiling expressions of rationalism is this expression: women, ladies and gentlemen, are not irrational. They are relational. So happy reading. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you.